Jack Barlow, an American writer and journalist, came to a small town in Maine to gather material for an article about strange disappearances. According to rumors, people were disappearing without a trace near an old abandoned hospital, closed since the middle of the XX century. Locals avoided the subject, and those who agreed to talk mentioned something called whispers. It was said that at night voices came from the building, barely audible, as if someone was conversing in the dark. Jack didn't believe in mysticism, but a sense of unease settled in him as soon as he arrived. Already on the first evening he had noticed that a lamp had burned out in his motel and a shadow flickered outside the window, even though the street was empty. Coincidence? He thought, but his fingers clenched on the handle of the lantern by themselves. Why did he suddenly feel so uncomfortable? That same night, Jack decided to check out the building. From the outside, the hospital seemed lifeless, with peeling paint, broken windows, and a rusty sign that read Blackmore Sanitarium. But as he approached, a barely audible whisper broke the silence. Not the wind, not the echo, but precisely the words whispering, merging, wriggling like snakes. "Is that inside?" He whispered under his breath, and his heart pounded faster. Logic suggested it could be the wind, but everything inside him resisted that explanation. Taking a deep breath, he stepped in. The air was stale and heavy, smelling damp and stale. The floorboards creaked beneath his feet, and suddenly, the whispering stopped. It was even scarier than hearing it. Something, knew he was here. Jack aimed the flashlight down a long, shadow-filled hallway until the beam picked out a door with a peeling sign reading Chronic Injury Ward. He took a step forward, and the whispers resumed, closer now. The voices overlapped, quiet, confused, incomprehensible. "Who's there?" he managed to choke out, but immediately regretted it. There was an answer. The voices were calling his name now. Jack. Jack. He backed away, but the door creaked shut behind him. A light draft hit his face, and he felt breath. Jack froze. "Run," said a voice right behind his ear, cold, emotionless. He lunged forward, but the hallway became longer. Some kind of fog began to envelop the walls, and his feet caught on invisible barriers. This place was alive. The light of the lantern flickered. In its faint flicker, the walls seemed to move. Pale silhouettes extended from the doorways, no faces, no eyes, but with mouths moving in an endless whisper. Those who remained, the words tumbled through his mind, belonging to no one. Panic squeezed his chest. He was trapped. But why? Why weren't they getting any closer? Jack forced himself to focus. They didn't want to kill him, they wanted him to realize something. "Are you locked in here?" he asked in a trembling voice. The whisper changed. Became pleading. "The words set us free" echoed. In desperation, he looked at the walls and realized one of them was embossed with the doctor's name, Dr. Langley. He must have locked them in here, but how? Suddenly, Jack's gaze caught on an old folder on the floor. It contained a single sheet of paper, the hospital closure report. Dr. Langley's signature, date, reason, patients declared missing. He understood. They weren't gone, they were erased. Their memory was erased, they were stuck between worlds, locked in the shadows. In despair, he tore off the sheet and the fog began to dissipate. The whispers turned into words of gratitude. The shadows dissolved, as if freeing themselves. The corridor was normal again, and moonlight shone through the door. When Jack left, the building seemed less scary to him. He turned around and saw an inscription he hadn't noticed before, "Remember us." He nodded. Soon he would write an article. No one would forget. That night the whispers stopped, but the silence was no longer frightening. P.S. Maybe we don't know. Perhaps it is not so scary to die as to be forgotten by everyone.